Hello, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in as always. I hope everyone is doing okay. So today I wanted to discuss great sounding records. I've been making lists over the last couple of weeks and I've picked out 9 albums which I consider the absolute best sounding pretty much in my collection, to be honest with you. In this case, we're talking high fidelity, almost what I would consider hi-fi test records, the sort of records you would pull out if you bought a new piece of equipment and you wanted to give it a test. These I would consider are that good. So let's crack on, let's get on with it, and we'll have some thoughts at the end. So these are in no particular order. This is not a ranking of what sounds best. So the first one I've gone for is a debut album by Pentangle. This is an original UK pressing, not an absolute first pressing, but it is because there are some producer credit differences on the labels. But this is, this is an early Matrix, so it is definitely an early pressing. This sounds breathtakingly good. It is absolutely fantastic. Why I think it works as a high fidelity record is kind of frequency range. You have got a double bass player, Danny Thompson, who is amazing, so you are getting low frequencies. You have got certain percussion instruments that are giving the high frequencies. And there's just so much clarity on this record. It just sounds clear as crystal. The vocals as well, Jackie McShee's vocals, it works so well and it is so well recorded. Being all acoustic as well, it's not kind of swamped with overdubs or anything. I'd imagine a lot of this was kind of recorded as is live in the studio. So the music really has room to breathe and you can just hear all the instruments amazingly. Not a particularly hard album to find. As I say, I can't comment on other pressings of this. This is a UK early pressing and it sounds fantastic. Brilliant album as well. So if you get a chance to obtain a copy, this is highly recommended if you want to give your hi-fi a treat. Okay, next up, I've gone for a couple of jazz records. So this is going to be an obvious one to start things off. We got Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, obviously a seminal and enormously popular jazz album, probably the most popular jazz album. Now, the reason I've gone for this particular one is the issue it's on. Now, I have shown this before when I bought it last year. This is a Nimbus Supercut. Very, very privileged and lucky to have found this one. So Nimbus they were a specialist pressing plant. If you look them up online, there is a history to them. That's how they're spelled. You can't really distinguish much between an ordinary CBS pressings. It's just got that sticker on, and if you look in the Matrix, it says cut by Nimbus. But apart from that, it looks like a standard 1980s pressing. This is breathtaking. This sounds amazing. I had an early US press, which was a bit on the crackly side, but sounded very, very good. So I was up for a replacement of some kind. And this came my way for an absolute bargain price from a record fair. I still can't believe what I paid for it and the fact that I've actually got it in the first place. The reputation for these Nimbus Supercuts are high. I haven't got any others and I probably never will. They sell for high prices. I didn't pay a huge amount for this, but they generally sell for high prices. But it plays absolutely silently, apart from a little bit of crackle for the first 10 seconds or so, which is probably normal for most records, to be fair. It is absolutely silent and you can hear everything. Absolutely every last detail in the recording is here. It's absolutely amazing. It is a difficult inclusion, this one, because I want to recommend things that are kind of obtainable and easy to get. This one probably isn't as obtainable as some others I'm going to show, but I could not show it because it just sounds so good. And what a privilege to have. The next jazz record, which is certainly in the UK, very easy to find. Not that I've seen many of them, but on Discogs, yeah, they're not priced high. Now, this is a reissue. This is certainly not an original. This is a budget reissue from around 1972. It's by Dizzy Gillespie, and it's called Something Old, Something New. I bought this kind of spare of the moment when I started collecting jazz records. It was in a large jazz section. It was in great condition, and it was about £4. It's released on Philips International, which was a budget label at the time. Completely different cover. I can't get over how good this sounds. Every time I put it on, it still takes my breath away when it just bursts in, because this is a more sort of frantic record. It's what's known as bop. Now, when it comes to jazz, I just buy jazz records I want to buy. I don't really know the terms. I don't really know the kind of terminology, the way to describe them a lot of the time. I just like what I like. But it's the old cliche that it sounds like the musicians are in the room with you. If you play this on even a half decent system, even a sort of, a decent budget system, it sounds absolutely great. The music just bursts out of the speakers in a way that, unless you hear it, I can't express or describe. It's incredible. As I say, what interests me here is this is a budget UK mid-70s reissue, different cover. I have no idea what the originals sound like. They might sound even better, the US originals, whatever it was released on. I can't quite remember offhand, but obviously if you look at it on Discogs, you will see. But if you can get hold of this one on Philips International from 1972, it is there online. I highly recommend it. Give your hi-fi and ears a real treat, and the music on it is fantastic. Okay, next up, we have something a little bit more up to date. This is by Matt Berry, and the album is called Music for Insomniacs. Now, Matt Berry is a comedy actor and performer, but he is also a prolific musician and has released a fair few albums now, probably about 10 albums. It's got to be around that now. And it's still performing. He released one this year, which is great. This particular one is just 2 tracks, part 1 and part 2. Okay, it's unlike anything else he's ever made in the past, or at least before or since. And musically, it's kind of soundscapes. It's synthesizers. Think of Tangerine Dream, but with a load of added sound effects to it. It is a really interesting listen, but it's the way it's recorded, the way it's produced, it sounds fantastic. The kind of stereo panning, the way the sound effects come at you, I can't get over how good this sounds. I mean, all of his records sound great. They're brilliantly produced. I believe he uses a lot of analog equipment. So, if you want contemporary music with, a true vinyl sound, his records are definitely worth going for, and they're all great. But this, on a decent hi-fi, sounds absolutely fantastic. It's just so engaging, and yeah, what more can I say? Wonderful stuff indeed. Right, we have a bit of classic rock. An absolute favourite of mine, and this is a popular record. It really is, and well worth getting. So, Crime of the Century by Supertramp. So this is an original press. This is a Dutch pressing. Now, when I originally bought this, just tell a little story. When I first got this album, I bought a US original for about £2. Took it home, played it, thought it sounded amazing, fell in love with the album, blah, blah, blah. One day, I got the album out to play it, and I dropped it. And it caught on the edge of a table or something and put a large scratch on it, which popped. I was not happy. So I was like, right, okay, I need to replace it. Next time I went shopping, I found this, and it just happened to be a Dutch copy. And I was like, yeah, lovely, beautiful copy. Not very much money, took it home. I couldn't quite believe how much better it sounded than the US copy, which I thought sounded okay. But this knocked my socks off, and it kind of made me aware of how different pressings can sound better or worse. You know, it is important to find the best pressing of an album, and I'd never really experienced that before, and it's all from an accident. This plays silently. It plays absolutely silently, and the music is just so rich and detailed on it. I see UK pressings of this around all the time, and I have been tempted to do a comparison, get one to find out what it sounds like. And you know what? No, I can't. I believe it can't be bettered, and I almost can't be bothered to do a side by side comparison because this sounds so perfect. I've looked this issue up on Discogs, and the great thing about Discogs is I know people have an issue with Discogs from a selling and a buying platform, but it is a good tool to use when looking up different issues and people's opinions, because there's a lot of comments on this issue about how good it sounds. I'm not the only one who thinks this sounds like possibly the best pressing out there. So if you can get hold of this, it's on A&M, it's a Dutch pressing, and yeah, the album is brilliant, the sound quality is brilliant, it is just perfect. Okay, a little bit more classic rock here. Got some Steely Dan. This is Gaucho. This is their last record before I don't know if you want to call it a hiatus or they actually sort of split up and reformed. Wonderful stuff. I mean, this isn't my best Steely Dan album. My best Steely Dan album is Royal Scam, and that actually I'd have to say is one of my favourite albums, full stop. But that's another story. In terms of sound quality, this sounds amazing. This is an original UK pressing on MCA. Nothing special and easy to find. It's difficult because, again, I can't compare to other countries, you know, the US originals or anywhere else. I can't give it a comparison. I can only tell you what I've got and what I'm hearing. This sounds so crisp, just so clear. The last time I played it, I'd made several sort of upgrades to my hi-fi, and it knocked my socks off how good it sounded. It's just sheer clarity, and it's it's a small wonder because Steely Dan were known for absolute studio perfection. I mean, I think they got kind of, I want to say worse, because I read a book about them, and Don Fagen, Walt Becker sounded like absolute nightmares in the studios for just pushing these session musicians and pushing the sound and almost over-analysing. But, I mean, the results on this one are incredible, absolutely incredible. And I think this is one of their really overlooked albums. Not a lot of people gravitate towards Asia, which I do like, but personally, it's not one of my best albums by Steely Dan. This is absolutely wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful. And I have noticed the price on Steely Dan records, they're starting to creep up. So do yourself a favour and grab one whilst you can. Okay, something again more up to date. We have got Channel the Spirits by The Comet is Coming. Brilliant, brilliant record, brilliant record. This one is kind of, I would call it, to sum it up, it's like electronic jazz. It's synthesizers, but there are saxophones, jazz instruments. It's absolutely wonderful. But it sounds incredible. It sounds absolutely incredible. Clear as crystal. With those synthesizers, you've got deep, rich bass, and the music is just so engaging. It's so well mastered, and it is absolutely fantastic. One thing I will say about the Comet is coming, they've done some great records, absolutely great records. I have to say, when they switched labels, because they were on Impulse, they're on Impulse now, which has kind of been revived, based on the original Jazz Impulse label. The mastering on their records after this are nowhere near as good. So if you are going to check out Comet, the Comet is coming for good sound quality, this is the album to get. This is definitely the album to try, because the albums that followed, they're not mastered as well. They're quite quiet sounding, whereas this is loud, punchy, and just so dynamic. The label is called Leaf. I don't know if it's still in print, but if you can find one online, do it. You will not regret it. Right, finish with two from the 80s. What's it going to be? Now, I talked about this one fairly recently. And here we have Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, or OMD for short. This is their first album, their self-titled record. It is an original. It's got this die-cut sleeve, which is very nice. There's a few different variants of this. Anyway, I'm digressing a bit. Apart from being an absolutely awesomely good record, the sound on this is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Synth pop, so you've got all sorts of frequencies going on, and it's just got it. The thing is about it, it's got so many kind of high synthesizer frequencies going on there, and they just sound so sweet. They sound so clear, and this is just such a dynamic sounding record. What helps it is it was cut by a chap called George Peckham, who I did a whole video on, and I will leave a link to that in the description. This album did feature in that video. George Peckham, known as Porky Prime Cuts. Often in the runouts, he signs it off as Porky or Pico. And all of his records sound really great, but this is a stellar sounding record. He did a sterling job on this. So this is really one to pick up if you want amazing sound quality. These die-cut sleeves, they're a bit scarce. They can be a bit pricey. There are other alternative issues out there from the UK issues with the Porky Prime Cut, with non-die-cut covers. So if you are getting one with a non-die-cut cover, do check the matrix numbers for Porky Prime Cut, because they too will sound fantastic. What a brilliant album. What a great sounding record this is. And to finish off, this one, although I'm not ranking, I might rate this as the best sounding record I've got. I can't believe it. And to me, it's one of the greatest records of the entire 80s. And it is, of course, Colour of Spring by Talk Talk. This is incredible. The sheer depth and clarity on this is out of this world. It's off the scale. At the start of this video, I showed the Pentangle album, which featured Danny Thompson on bass. He features on this record as well. So for a start, you have got mega low frequencies from his double bass, but where the tracks are kind of not too overproduced, they're actually pretty sparse in places. The music just breathes. It really just breathes, and you can just hear everything. It is so deep, rich, and engaging. I don't know what more I can say. And this is a UK pressing I'm judging on. It's all I've ever had. I have had the issue I had before now was a bit crackly, so I upgraded it to a much better one. I believe it has been reissued recently, and that too is supposedly, according to Discogs, extremely good also. But these original UK pressings, they're not that, slightly pricey, but they're nothing ridiculous, and they're not too rare. So apart from the fact that this is just a unbelievable record, if you want to give your hi-fi ears a treat, again, this is the one to get. Absolutely fantastic. Really good. Okay, so there you have it. There you have it. I was kind of thinking about this, how to sort of, do the outro of the video. Is this my opinion? I mean, is this sort of thing, can you call it subjective? Because on the one hand, you can argue that a good sounding record is a good sounding record. There's no argument to it. That's the way it is. And that could be the case. On the other hand, I guess it's still my personal preference. Maybe the sound of these records are just geared to what I look for from a recording. All I'm doing here is trusting my ears. When it comes to sort of hi-fi terminology and the way to describe music, I can't do it. I couldn't be a journalist. I couldn't be a music journalist or a hi-fi journalist. All I'm doing is describing what I'm hearing and if it sounds good to me. So I have to say, I think this is kind of my opinion. But at the same time, you can't deny that, there is something good with all of these. And the great thing is I haven't just picked out records for the sake of sound quality. Each and every one of these albums are fantastic musically anyway. So even if you don't think they're all that sound-wise, I do think the music is good. So there it is. So I would really love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Can you recommend albums in the comments that sound good? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What are your thoughts? I would love to hear from you in the comments, as always. So, I think that's all I've got. I've picked out 9. There is a list going on where there was a few albums I left off. So this video might be open for a part 2. If it works well, I probably will do a part 2 on it, because there are certain albums that I could have included here that I didn't. I didn't want it to go on for too long. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves, and thanks as always for tuning in. I'll see you all again soon.